Good morning. Welcome to Principles of Exercise Therapy. Monday morning, we are straight into it, exercising the best way that we know how. Just wanted to bring your attention to my new ebook. I sent out an announcement, but there is a third ebook that I've given you now. So there's one for semester 1, one for semester 2. But there's a new Principles of Exercise Therapy ebook that really deep dives into each of the principles so you have a good understanding of those. Can you just give me a thumbs up in the chat if you've had a chance to look at the new Principles of Exercise book? Yeah? Is it useful? Yeah, just give me a yes in the chat that it's useful, or in what way is it useful? Hopefully the formatting is a bit odd. Okay, yeah, sometimes I'll have to check the PDF converter on that. Okay, but was the information useful? More to the point, James, was that information of use to you? Yeah, okay, so hopefully you understand the principles of exercise therapy a bit more. There is no book out there that discusses the principles, because effectively this is taking the world of strength and conditioning and exercise physiology and kind of fitting it into a physio narrative that makes sense when teaching exercise prescriptions. So hopefully that's of use to you. Right, we will get on to the subject of today, which is the cardio-respiratory system, the heart and the lungs. I'm going to assume that there's going to be some knowledge here already. You wouldn't have made it onto this course without prior knowledge of the heart. The heart is the most important organ in the body in terms of what it does, and we call the heart the hardest working organ. It has the best cardio endurance. So if we are saying someone is not giving up, we refer to them, that person has heart. Okay, referring to the cardiorespiratory endurance, that they can just keep going and keep enduring. And remember, the heart is the most important muscle in the body because nobody ever died of a weak bicep. So let's focus on physiotherapy. Obviously, you've just had your weekend, so you've been doing all sorts of things, well, within the rules and the limitations. But what is our profession concerned about? This is like our mission statement. We come back to it every time. This will focus your mind on the mission, and the mission is learning about the cardiorespiratory system today. So our profession is concerned with human anatomy and physiology. How does the body work? The body is super complicated. We've got to try and explain that to our patients. Then we're talking about movement and function. Then we're talking about maximizing wellness and potential, minimizing disease and injury, and solving real-world problems. So we've got some huge real-world problems at the moment. We know that you are more affected by COVID if you are not cardiorespiratory fit. So by increasing your cardiovascular and your cardiorespiratory fitness, okay, you can give yourself a better chance of recovering. Exercise, again, is the fourth leading cause of preventable disease. And then if we exercise, all the other things like diabetes, coronary heart disease, all the respiratory problems, all the cardiovascular problems, all the blood sugar problems, okay, they can be managed with exercise. That's why we call it the polypill, the super drug, exercise. All we've got to do is exercise, and in particular, exercise the heart and lungs, i.e. we've got to get a little bit out of breath. And that's important. So what we're going to do in this session is describe how exercise affects the heart and the lungs, and we're going to see how we measure that in terms of how can exertion be measured and why do we need to measure it. And then we're also going to explain the concepts of how exercise prevents and provokes, or provokes and prevents. Now, I'm going to keep on and on about this prevent and provoke, because we have to understand that exercise is unpleasant initially, potentially, for people that have not seen the benefits or not done it for a little while. Okay, it would be the equivalent of waking up this morning and making you go on a 5K jog. You just wouldn't want to do it. Well, some of you might, but the majority of you would be like, no, I've just woken up. It's not the time to go running. I don't feel like it. I haven't brushed my teeth. All sorts of excuses that you're not ready to exercise. And our patients are going to have these same excuses because they have probably just woken up, or they're in hospital, they're not very well, and we've got to kind of focus on getting them fitter so that they can, able to do their 22 minutes of moderate activity. So that's the importance of what we're doing today. So just draw your attention to the principles of exercise therapy. So we want to be talking about the adaptation. Now, the heart will get stronger, okay, and the lungs will become more elastic the more we train them. Okay, so we have to train, we have to get out of puff. It is good for us. It's what we were built to do. And however, sedentary behavior is massively on the increase, particularly in lockdown. So we've got to make sure that we're trying to combat that sedentary behavior by doing some exercise. Then the specificity of cardiovascular endurance is that you've got to be exercising for more than 2 minutes in order to start working the aerobic system. And that could be just simply walking with our patients if we want to regress it, or it could be doing something like cycling or walking on a treadmill, or dare I say, even breaking into a jog. And we've got to remember that overload will be specific to that patient. Reversibility applies massively on this one. If you do not maintain your cardiorespiratory fitness, you just lose it. And we've got to get enough time out so that we sleep and we rest. Behavioral change with regard to this, we must build in exercise to our lifestyle. So behavioral change and lifestyle integration go hand in hand. We've got to think about the individual. Lots of our patients might have some sort of cardiac compromise where there might be a genuine fear of exercise because they've had a heart attack, for example. We've got to make sure that they maintain their fitness, and their fitness is their responsibility, and we've got to give that responsibility back to the patient. So that's the scenario around this. Okay, so exercise is a paradox. So the exercise paradox is that in order to get the long-term benefits of exercise, we've got to provoke the cardiorespiratory system short-term in order for the heart to get stronger. So what happens is that we need those 22 minutes a day to be moderately active, i.e. getting the heart rate up, which will increase breathing rate, increase the heart, and effectively training the heart. Now that can be unpleasant at first, so we've got to support the patient on the journey. But it also, that first 2 minutes of exercise is always the hardest as well. So we provoke short-term to prevent cardiac problems long-term. And remember that cardiac patients are something that we're going to be dealing with later on when we do cardiac rehab. And there are some guidelines to that from the American College of Sports Medicine and our own British version as well. So when we're talking about the heart and the lungs, we're talking about these adaptative changes. So the principle of adaptation. So the SAID principle, making sure that it's specific as the adaptation to the imposed demand of that. Exercise is medicine for the heart. You can't do it for the patient. And we use the dosage, which we use the overload principle, which is the drive analogy. So the duration, we want our patient to be doing the magic 22 minutes, okay, but they don't have to do 22 minutes in one go. They could effectively snack on exercise, doing 6 minutes here, 5 minutes there, as long as they build the consecutive time that day of moderate activity for 22 minutes, they still gain all the health benefits. And most people in the UK are not meeting that. I don't know whether you saw the TEDx at the weekend. On Saturday, University of Sheffield did its first TED Talk live, and Alex Clark-Cornwell from Public Health was talking about sedentary behaviour and the importance of being active during lockdown. So we've got, so this is really current with what's going on at the moment. So we've got the duration. It must be longer than 2 minutes. Ideally, you want to be doing 4 to 5 minutes to get out of puff. You've got to make sure you recover. The intensity only needs to be moderate to gain the health benefits. Obviously, if the intensity is vigorous, we can halve the amount of time, only 11 minutes of vigorous per day. But most of our patients will not tolerate vigorous at all. We want to think about the energy system we're using, which is the aerobic energy system. Okay, so here are the stats that you need to sort of have a basic memory of. We need to know what is average for a heart rate, for respiratory rate, for stroke volume, for cardiac output, and for blood pressure, because these are what we call the vital signs. So in particular, what we can see heart rate, we can measure heart rate, we can measure respiratory rate, and we can measure blood pressure very commonly when we do observations with patients. Stroke volume and cardiac output normally done by the cardiologist, and that's more specialist. But we've got to realize that our resting pulse is roughly between 60 and 80 beats per minute, depending on what we're doing, depending on how we're thinking. Our respiratory rate is roughly between 8 and 16 breaths per minute. Okay, so 8 to 16 breaths per minute is our normal respiratory rate. And then our stroke volume, that's the amount of blood volume that our heart is squeezing, is about 17 milliliters per beat. So it's quite a lot. And then during a whole minute of the heart rate and the stroke volume combined, that will give us what we call cardiac output. So how much blood is going around the system? And we've got probably about 5.25 liters per minute going through the system at any one time. That is incredible. Okay, that is incredible. Put your hand on your heart and just thank your heart for doing that. Since the day you were born, it's been working hard. It works while you're asleep. Okay, a little bit of gratitude for the heart in the morning. Okay, and then we've got blood pressure. Normal blood pressure is about 120/80. These are basic metrics that you need to commit to memory. Okay, just give me a thumbs up in the chat that you're happy with those metrics and you've committed them to memory, or you've heard them before. Quick thumbs up. Yeah, okay, most of you, this is old hat, but it's important to think about. So when we look at blood pressure, we can see that we've got two types of blood pressure. We've got the systolic and the diastolic. Okay, the systolic when the heart is contracting, diastolic when the heart is relaxing. And we can clearly see here with exercise, okay, that it starts about 120 and that blood pressure will go up significantly. Okay, we want to make sure that we don't really want that blood pressure going over 200. That would be a contraindication. Okay, but you can see that the diastolic stays low mostly when we're exercising. So systolic blood pressure will increase, okay, and diastolic blood pressure should stay the same. Remember, one of the contraindications with regard to blood pressure, if your blood pressure is over 200 systolic or 100 diastolic, then you shouldn't be exercising until you've been cleared by your GP, your general practitioner, who will probably send you for some cardiac tests if you suffer with high blood pressure. And that normally can be cured quite easily with regular cardiovascular exercise. Okay, and then obviously we might put people on medication as well, but exercise is still the best way of doing that. Remember, very few, side effects of exercise: feeling good, increased self-esteem. Okay, generally fitter and healthier. Okay, very little bit of discomfort. That's the only side effect. So we've got to think of the heart and the lungs as systems. Okay, so our body is a system of systems. So the heart is effectively a 4-chamber pump, okay, that circulates 2 systems. So what we call the systemic system. This is blood through the body, and then we've got the pulmonary system, which is about oxygenation of blood in the lungs. Okay, so we've got 2 systems. So blood comes into the heart, okay, from the veins into the heart, okay, and then it gets pumped around the atrium, into the ventricles, into the lungs, okay, and then back from the lungs once it's oxygenated, and it pumps blood around the body. So not only is it oxygenating blood, but it's getting rid of waste products like carbon dioxide as well. And we effectively breathe it out. Okay, the trees love that. They give us oxygen in return. So we've got the systemic system as well, and this is transporting all that richly oxygenated blood around the body, particularly when the muscles are working, when we're doing exercise. And obviously when we're doing exercise, the working muscles need more oxygen because they are effectively working. When we're at rest, we don't need so much of that. So as with ever, you know, a diagram paints 1,000 words. Okay, so imagine that everything's coming in from the body, from the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava. Okay, so this is what we call venous return. The veins are returning blood to the heart. This is deoxygenated blood. Okay, so it's blood that needs oxygen. It goes from the right atrium to the left ventricle. Okay, and then it's pumped up. Just have a look at these. These are one-way valves, so we can't get backflow through the heart. So as it pushes there, it goes off to the lungs, okay, to get oxygenated, and then it comes back from the lungs into the left atrium, okay, and then into the left ventricle, okay, and then it's pumped around the heart. This is the aorta here. So it's pumped around the heart to the body. So we've got this two pump system that is effectively working in coordination, and that's happening all day, every day. Okay, every time the heart beats, this is exactly what's happening. Okay, so we've got remember that veins are returning blood to the heart, and then arteries, this is the aorta here, arteries are taking blood away from the heart. So if we remember A for away and A for arteries, so arteries taking blood away from the heart, veins or venous return taking blood back to the heart through this 4-pump system. Okay, so as I said before, the blood returns from the body needing to get oxygenated. Okay, the right side of the heart is going to oxygenate the blood coming from obviously superior and inferior vena cava, and then goes off to the lungs, gets oxygenated. Once it's oxygenated, it can be pumped around the blood, pumped around the body, okay, because it is effectively full of oxygen, and the system continues. Remember, we need oxygen after we've been doing exercise for about 2 minutes. That's the aerobic system, the with oxygen system, and that's how we can continue to generate energy. So now I have a question for you. So just type in the chat either Y or N. Okay, the heart pumps blood round the body. True or false? Okay. Yeah. Next question. Does the heart pump blood round the entire body? Okay. So in that case, how does blood, good work guys, you're correct. Okay, how does blood get back to the heart? Venous return, muscle contraction, muscle pump, yeah. Okay, skeletal muscle pump, yeah, all over this one, guys. Okay, very impressive. No problems on you. Monday morning, you're absolutely nailing it. Okay, so here we've got the system, okay, that we're talking about. Okay, so everything's coming in through the superior vena cava, okay, goes in to the right atrium, right ventricle, okay, and then it's off up to get oxygenated, okay, from the lungs, gets oxygenated, okay, comes back into the the left atrium, then down to the left ventricle, and then back around the body. Okay, so the blue denotes the fact that this blood is full of CO2 and needs to be oxygenated, and the red denotes the fact that it is oxygenated. So sometimes nice to see that. So we're talking about the lungs now. So you're going to be doing lots of lung stuff when you do respiratory physio. So it's important that you have a basic understanding of the lungs, particularly when you do cram next year, the cardio-respiratory component. So what we've got is we've got the airway. Obviously, we've got the openings of the nose and the mouth, okay, down the throat into the windpipe, okay, or the trachea. And the trachea then bifurcates into the two lungs, okay. And then if we go a little bit into the lungs, we go to the bronchus and then the bronchioles, and then right at the bronchioles we've got the alveoli, okay. And this is where obviously everything takes place. We've got this muscle here down the bottom, the diaphragm. Diaphragm is very important because it works in coordination with the heart. That's like, imagine this is what we call a thoracic compartment or the thoracic cage. So we've got ribs either side here, okay, and they're like the ceiling, and the diaphragm is like the floor, and the heart is kind of nicely snuggled in there between the two lungs, right in the center of the body, okay. That's why when we're doing cardiac rehab, we go right for the center of the body. So the alveoli, okay, are particularly important, and the bronchioles here. If you live in a smoggy city or you're a naughty smoker, these can become blackened. So the alveoli can become blackened and not work properly. And there's little hairs like on the bronchioles called cilia, and they waft dust particles up to the top of the lungs, so you can effectively cough out all the mucus and stuff like that. And you'll see your patients do a lot of coughing and sputum production, and we have to take samples of that. It's something you're going to have to get used to. So we've got this basic understanding of how the lungs work as well. So particularly after exercise, your patients are going to be clearing lots of secretions, and that's what we want, because secretions, otherwise they block this alveoli and stop gaseous exchange. So we've got 5 important functions of the cardiovascular system. One, obviously, is delivering oxygen to the working muscles when we're exercising, and then obviously we've got to return that blood back to the lungs to get reoxygenated. A consequence or a byproduct of exercise will be heat. So effectively, we're gonna heat up, and then that's going to send blood from the core, from the center to the extremity in order to cool down via the method of sweating. We also need nutrients and fuel as well as oxygen to the tissues that are working. We also need transport of all those hormones. So your stress hormones would be adrenaline, noradrenaline, cortisol, for example. Okay, and exercise will help regulate the cardiorespiratory and the cardiovascular system. So blood vessels become more elastic, simply because they're used to a period of conditioning. And we know that the exercise effect is one of the few things where the science is settled. There's so many papers on exercise being good for you, okay, and with hardly any side effects. Remember that most drugs have side effects. We wouldn't need to take so many drugs if we were taking more exercise. Right, so if we're thinking of getting physical, so you'll be doing some tests tomorrow, some physical tests tomorrow. So please bring your sports kit and a towel, okay, because you might be getting a little bit hot. Also, make sure you've got like a vest top or a t-shirt, something that's going to help regulate you, because you're going to be exercising just for 2 minutes or so, hardly getting out of breath, just doing a few step ups or a few wall pushes. But just bear in mind that we will be hotting up a little bit tomorrow. So bring a towel, plenty of water, okay, and please let your instructor know if you've got any reason why you can't be exercising, and we will find a workaround, because if there's one module that can get you exercising by regressing the exercises, it's this one. So we've talked about the anticipatory response to exercise. So I've only got to mention exercise tomorrow and your heart rate is going up slightly, and that's the anticipatory mechanism that is really important. Okay, so this is part of our fight or flight or our stress response, and with that, what happens is that the body prepares for exercise through the psychological suggestion of doing exercise. So your heart rates are all spiking up really high, simply because I'm talking about exercise. And these, what happens is you've got neurotransmitters epinephrine, norepinephrine, or adrenaline and noradrenaline, and these are stimulating your sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight. We talk more about that hormonal system next week. So what's happening really is when we start exercising or thinking about exercise, our heart rate spikes, prepares our body for what's going on, starts pumping blood around the body, and we can start oxygenating. So if you've ever done a race, okay, imagine you're doing a fun run, okay, and the gun goes off and everyone sprints off at the start, okay, and you've got a massive spread of people right at the beginning between people that are going to take it slow and the people that want to race it. So what happens is after about 2 minutes, roughly where everyone is on the field will be consistent because people have reached what we call steady state. So the key is trying to get as far as we can to the front before we reach steady state. And obviously this will depend on our fitness, but when we've reached steady state, we can keep going almost indefinitely. So for instance, if you've ever been walking all day, all you're doing is pootling along, you can walk all day. If you're going for a run, if you run fast, you can't run far, okay, unless you're very fit. Okay, most people run for about 20 minutes to 30 minutes, okay, sometimes up to an hour, okay, but any more than that, people just don't run longer than an hour, simply because they fatigue, okay, they've already reached steady state, they've done their run, they've got the health benefits, and they move on. Okay, so we're now going to focus on the heart in terms of what happens during exercise. So the exercise will increase heart rate. It will also increase stroke volume. So and therefore cardiac output. So cardiac output is a combination of heart rate and stroke volume multiplied by each other. And then this will give you what we call optimal training zones. If any triathletes that know about zones 1 to 5, just type yes in the chat. If you're a triathlete, okay, and you know about, or an ultra distance runner, okay, and you know about zones. No, you're stunned silence. Okay, there's normally at least one triathlete that will know about the zones. We come on to that in a second. So remember that exercise is good for you, and it's a temporary increase in heart rate that will effectively lower your resting heart rate as you get fitter. So the fitter you are, the lower your resting heart rate in general. We do know some athletes that are absolutely incredible and their resting pulse just didn't change, but they're still capable of incredible things. But generally, this provoke and prevent means the lower your heart rate, the fitter you are. Okay, so let's find out. So what I want you to do is find your pulse. Now, the pulse I want you to find is your radial pulse on your left hand. So you can use your right fingers, and I'm on the thumb side, just to feel the pulse there. Finger on the pulse. Yeah? So your finger should be on the pulse. And then what I'm going to do, I want you to count for 30 seconds. Okay, and I will tell you the count. So hopefully fingers on the pulse, and we're going to start in 3, 2, 1. Begin counting now. And stop there. Okay, multiply that number by 2 and then type it in the chat for me. Multiply that number by 2, type it in the chat. Okay, 72, 60, whatever you got. Okay, so we've got a variety, good stuff, guys. We've got a variety of heart rates. No one really is above 80 beats per minute. Okay, in fact, most of you are less than 72 beats per minute. Okay, you've got some very, very fit people. Okay, with your young things, I would expect that. So 30 seconds. Did you find that when your finger was on the pulse there, that all of a sudden you think, did I feel that? I've kind of lost the feeling. Who felt that they kind of lost it after about 15 seconds, and then you thought, am I still on it? Did anybody get that? Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Okay. Last 10 seconds. So doing this for 30 seconds, okay, you're gonna lose it. Your fingers aren't sensitive enough. So what we're gonna try is doing it for only 15 seconds and then multiply it by 4. Yeah, multiply it by 4. So imagine it was 1 beat per second. Okay, so you had 15 in 15 beats in 15 seconds. That would be 60 beats per minute. Yeah. Okay, if we times 15 by 4. So finger back on the pulse. Finger back on the pulse, guys. This time we're only going to do it for 15 seconds. So finger on the pulse. I'm going to count you down. 3, 2, 1. Begin counting now. Stop. Okay. So what we did there was 15 seconds. Multiply that number by 4. Type it in the chat and see if it was more or less, or was it about the same? Type the number in and then type me some feedback. Was it more or less or about the same? Same, exactly the same, less. Okay. Same. Okay, so those of you were measuring accurately. So there's 2 ways of measuring heart rate, and you might be asked to do this in the exam. Either times it by 2 from 30 seconds or times it by 4. 15 seconds is more accurate though. Did you feel, just type yes or no in the chat, if 15 seconds you felt you could feel every beat for 15 seconds? Yes or no, guys? Yeah. So it's a lot easier, isn't it? It's a lot easier when we do 15 seconds. So much easier. Okay, so now what I want you to do is find where you are on this, and I'm going to type my resting heart rate in there. Okay, that's my status. Okay, so type in, so find your age, okay, and then your heart rate, and then let me know where you are roughly. Are you an athlete? Are you excellent, good, above average? Rebecca's happy, she's an athlete. Yeah, most of you are in good cardiovascular health, aren't you? Most of you are in good cardiovascular health, and your patients will not be in good cardiovascular health. They will have a resting pulse above 82 beats per minute. So you can see that a resting pulse above 80 beats per minute when we're truly at rest means that there's either no training effect or they might be ill. Does that make sense? So sometimes we measure our pulse in the morning to see whether we might be unwell. So if your pulse is normally, say, 60 beats per minute when you wake up in the morning, if you wake up and your pulse is at 80 beats per minute, which is 20 beats per minute higher, it could be that you're coming down with something. So can you see that we can use heart rate as a metric? Yes or no, team? Yeah, heart rate as a metric of fitness. Okay, can we see? Type yes or no in the chat that we understand that. Yeah, just Rebecca. Yeah, no, there's a few more. Yeah, okay, got it. So we're going to now think about so we've got an equation now, okay, and this equation is important because it makes us think about what maximal heart rate is. Okay, so one of the overload principles will be training the cardiorespiratory system. Now we'll teach you a better way of doing this, but for some of you that have not done this equation before, it's your maximum heart rate that is safe is 220 minus your age. Okay, so 220 minus your age. So for a 60-year-old, what would their maximum heart rate be? Type it in the chat. Yeah. Okay, good. Right. So now what I want you to do, okay, is so let's pretend I'm still 40. Okay. What would my maximum heart rate be if I was 40? Yeah. 180 beats per minute. Yeah. Okay. So what I want you to do now is work out your own safe training zone and type that in the chat. So if mine's 180, yours is going to be much higher than that. Yeah, you can be up in the 200s. We're teaching the Kavonen and the in-bar method in cardiac rehab. Yeah. Okay. Some of you have done this before. So what I'm doing is I'm giving you a very easy principle to understand, because when we start doing the maths, a lot of you don't like maths. You switch off when I start doing sums and equations. So we keep it easy. Who was asking about the Kavonen methods? Megan, yeah, we're going to do the in-bar calculation rather than the Kavonen. But yes, you're right to be aware of that. Okay. So what I want you to do, so I'm going to give you an example. Let's pretend I'm 40. So 220 minus 40 gives me 180 beats per minute. Okay. So 60% of that, okay, is 108. Okay. So 108 is my 60%. Okay. And 75% would be 135. Okay. So that is my training zone in the chat. So between 108 and 135 beats per minute, it is 60 to 75% of my safe maximum heart rate. So you can see that's not a huge amount to train in, is it? Okay, it's very easy for me to get into that zone. What I want you to do is work out your own zone. So work out maximum heart rate and then 60% to 75% of yours. Okay, Wendy is similar to me, very young. Okay, yeah. So Alex P, okay, 115 to 145. Jack's up at 152 nearly. Yeah, so young, Jack, so young. Okay, is up at 150. Rebecca's at 137, top end. Okay, Meg F is 151. Rhiannon 150. Jade 152. Okay, so you can see that that's not very much. That's 50 beats below your maximum heart rate. So this just gives you, okay, yeah. Okay, that's the nature of this game, Rebecca. We're not getting older, we're getting better. Okay, so now we've all done that. Okay, just make sure that you can do that. There's not a huge amount of you responding. You've got 81 of you on the call. Okay, and there's only a few of you that have worked that out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's see some more, please. Okay, work out your maximum heart rate. This is important, guys. I want at least another 3. Okay, I want another. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, we're just slow on the calculations, aren't we? It's Monday morning. Okay, it's Monday morning. Get it? Okay, good stuff. Okay, that's important. This metric is important because this is how you know how hard to train. So this is important for your own training. Remember, the first patient you treat is yourself. So be gentle with yourself as you be kind and gentle with your patients. Okay, so this is one of my pet peeves. So over the lockdown period, okay, I haven't struggled personally, but my girlfriend has struggled to motivate herself to do exercise. Despite obviously living with me, lucky lady, she's not motivated to do exercise most of the time. So we've been using these apps. Okay, so fitness apps. I've literally tried them all. And what I've worryingly noticed is that they don't do a cool down. So what happens is that you take someone from high aerobic load. So you're taking some of these workouts, my heart rate is up at about 200 beats per minute, okay, which is well over my safe zone, okay, which is perfectly fine if you're an athletic individual. But some of these workouts take me from 100, 200 beats per minute straight into lying down on the mat stretching. That is absolutely ridiculous. Okay, that is dangerous. Okay, and this is why physios should be in charge of exercise and not trainers. What happens is you do not take someone from high aerobic load and then drop them massively down like that. That is really bad practice. Okay, and I think I probably need to write an angry letter and tell them off. So what happens is that if we're exercising at this really high heart rate and all of a sudden we just stop, okay, we're going to get effectively what we call blood pooling in the legs. And what happens is we know that the muscle pump increases venous return back to the heart. But if all the blood is in the big muscles of the lower limb, it can't get there. And then what happens is that you then you can't get rid of your CO2 and you can't get new oxygen. So all that happens is you feel dizzy and lightheaded and you black out. So it's very dangerous to do this. So we should always, when we're doing exercise, do a cool down. Okay, that's taking our heart rate from whatever it is, and it must be below 100 beats per minute to do an effective cool down. Now, an effective cool down is as simple as marching on the spot. Okay, marching on the spot or walking around. Okay, but we keep the blood pump going. Okay, we don't suddenly just stop. So we keep the blood pump going until that heart rate is reduced to under 100 beats per minute. That's when we know we've sufficiently recovered. So we never go from high aerobic load to just sat on the floor. That is absolute lunacy. That is dangerous. So give you an example. When I was a student, okay, a long time ago, on my first degree, we did something called the Wingate test, which is a maximal test. Just give me a quick, I think you lost me there. Just give me a thumbs up if you heard Wingate. Wingate. Can you give me a thumbs up? Have you still got me? Yeah. Okay. For whatever reason, my image just dropped out there. So what happens is I was doing a Wingate test, which is a maximal test. So it's a maximal sprinting test on a bike. Yeah. And you've got to do repeated lots of these and they increase the weight. Now, because I was a student, I'd been out the night before partying and enjoying myself. I think I'd been to the Ministry of Sound in Elephant and Castle. So I hadn't slept a huge amount. And then I'd come in early in the morning to do these tests. After about my fourth Wingate test, because the person taking the data wasn't really interested in the health of their subjects, after I'd finished on the bike for the fourth one, I got blood pooling in my legs. I came off the bike and I blacked out, okay, because I didn't do a cool down, okay? And if you're maximal testing, that is really dangerous. Now, that's fine for a young person. I came round lying on my back with my legs elevated, okay? And that's the best position, because all that happens is you want blood to return back to the heart, okay? As soon as it turns back to the heart, the blood can circulate round the body again, and the brain gets the oxygen and the blood that it needs. Okay, so it's a true story. It happened to me, which is why it's so important to do a cool down. Okay, has anyone ever blacked out from not having done a cool down? Yes or no in the chat, guys? No. Okay, it's just me then. Just me that sounds like the weirdo. Thanks very much, guys. Okay. All right, Grace has done that. Megan's done that. Yeah, blacked out from just standing up. It's that postural drop. Now, the postural drop is different from that. Okay, so what happens is when we're exercising hard, we tend to use what we call the accessory muscles. Okay, these are the muscles where you can see the whole body moving. Okay, the muscles of the upper traps, the levator scapulae, the internal and external obliques. Okay, everything is being used. Okay, you'll see lots of neck muscles there, like sternocleidomastoid and things like that, just helping you get that oxygen in when you're in oxygen debt. You've got to try and get that back as quickly as you can. So we've got to think about breathing. Okay, now breathing is a whole science. There's a lot to it. Okay, I could speak about breathing for hours and hours. We could do a whole day on breathing. But you just need to know, okay, that we need to increase our work of breathing when we're exercising. So not only have we got to increase the heart, but we've got to make sure that we're breathing and we have increased work of breathing to make sure that we recover what we call the oxygen debt. And there's something called the VO2 max, which is our maximal oxygen uptake. And normally this is measured on something horrendous. It's called the bleep test. Okay, type yes in the chat if you have done the bleep test. Anybody done the bleep test? Yeah, we all remember this one. Okay, yeah, yes. Yeah, okay, horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. Yeah, lots of sick emojis coming in. So that's it really measures motivation. Never again, says Rebecca. Okay, I get you. So that is our maximum oxygen uptake. Okay, so how do we measure effort now? So we're coming down here now onto how do we measure effort. So we can measure the pulse or the heart rate. We might have like a chest strap, okay, or we might have to just do it manually. Also, we're looking at their breathing. We can count their breaths if they're using accessory muscles for their breath. How do they look? Are they a pink puffer or a blue bloater? Okay, you'll cover that next term. Okay, and then we measure two scales of perceived exertion. The first one is the Borg scale. Okay, remember this is very important. The Borg scale goes from 6 to 20, and it's a measurement of how hard you think you're working. So it's very individual, very subjective. But again, we're making it objective because we're giving it a number. And then the rate of perceived exertion is simply 1 to 10. Okay, 1 being nothing, 10 being everything. We're obviously thinking about blood pressure before and after, and then we'll also come on to something called METs, which is metabolic equivalent of task. Has anybody heard of METs before? Type yes in the chat if you've heard of METs before. Okay, so a few of you have heard about metabolic equivalent of task. So we come on to these in a second. So rate of perceived exertion. This is the Borg scale. It comes from Sweden, okay, and it's still used in practice today for respiratory and cardiac rehab. So 6 is no exertion at all, and 20 is maximal exertion. And we want to be using somewhat hard. So between 12 and 14, ideally about 13, okay, somewhat hard. So we've got to make sure that that patient is working somewhat hard in order to gain the benefits. If we stay here in light activity, we get some of the benefits, but not all of them. The demands of the activity, we're not creating enough overload. So we want our patients to be somewhat hard. If they're exercising here at 15, it's too much, okay? Remember the Borg scale, okay? Where do we want to be, guys? Roughly on the Borg scale? Type it in the chat. Yeah, 12 to 14, 13, somewhat hard. That's important. Right, then we've got the rate of perceived exertion. And here you'll talk about, here we talk about the different zones, okay, if you're into your training. Obviously, none of you are. I've got no triathletes here and no runners. That's unusual. So we've got rate of perceived exertion. 10 is maximal effort. 1 is very light activity. Okay, 2 to 3 out of 10 is light activity, and then 4 to 6 is where we want to be, moderate activity. Remember, 22 minutes, 150 minutes of moderate activity to gain the health benefits. Okay, and then if we go up to 7 to 8 out of 10, this is vigorous activity, and this is where we can be if we're fit and healthy, and we only have to do 11 minutes of vigorous activity per day or 75 minutes per week to gain all the benefits. So if we're looking at the zones, okay, zone 1 is like a recovery. So if you ever hear something about recovery run or recovery ride, it's keeping below 65% of your maximal heart rate. And then zone 2, okay, is where we can go all day. Okay, this is a very light activity. We can go up to 75% of our maximal heart rate. Okay, zone 3, Here we're getting into what we call tempo training, where we're looking at cardiovascular endurance. We can go up to 82% of our heart rate max. Vigorous activity, we can't maintain this for very long. This is on our anaerobic threshold. Okay, so this is the lactic threshold. Okay, we can go up to nearly 90%, and then zones 6, 5, and 6. They're the zones we don't want to be in. Okay, these are the CrossFit zones. Okay, so we've got to be careful of things like rhabdomyolysis. Okay, and only the super fit should be working out maximally. Okay, and once anybody can work out maximally, but they've got to be trained and adapted. Okay, so we can still get our patients working, okay, maximally, but only after they are trained and adapted and given the so by the GP, they've had the right investigations. We should still encourage people to work out vigorously, but we don't need to encourage people to work out maximally. Does that make sense? Vigorous is different from maximal. Type yes in the chat if you understand that. Good. Very important. Right. So now we're going to talk about metabolic equivalent of task. So when you're asleep, doing nothing other than regenerating, well, you're not doing nothing, but sleep's very important. There's lots of stuff that happens there. Okay, if you've ever read Michael Walker's Why Do We Sleep book, okay, absolutely fascinating. I would recommend that. So sleeping takes roughly about 1 MET. Okay, so 1 metabolic equivalent of task. So this is your resting metabolism. So when you're at rest, i.e. when you're sleeping, 1 MET is being used. As you're sat here listening to me, I'm probably using about 2 METs because I'm talking and articulating with my hands, and you're probably using about 1.5 METs, which is not a lot, is it? So your resting metabolism, your basal metabolism is significantly decreased if we sit all day. And modern life is increasingly getting us to sit all day. It is absolutely terrible for us, but yet society is forcing us into doing this. This is why standing up and moving about. In fact, should we stand up? Everyone just stand up. Have a stand up. Have a quick stretch. Oh, move about. Twist. Okay, and then back into the evil seat. Okay, hope you're feeling better. So when we start walking, we increase our METs between 3 and 4, depending on how fast we walk. So this is why it's important to go for a lunchtime walk or an after work walk, because you want to increase your metabolism. It's good for you. Your body needs that. We want to prevent and provoke. And then obviously, if we want to go for a run, we can get our basal metabolism 8 times higher just by running. Okay, so you can see the activity that we do throughout the day, 8 hours of sleeping, okay, which is roughly 1 MET, okay, and then we do 8 hours of sitting down, which is 1.5 METs. Unless we go for a walk or a run, we can end up with sedentary behavior. Do you see how easy sedentary behavior is? And we only know that because we're beginning to measure it. We get patients to do a diary, okay, of how much activity they do during the day, and you'll be surprised at how inactive you are. Has anybody got like a smart watch, okay, or smart app on their phone that tells them how much activity they do? You normally after about 10,000 steps. Yeah, 10,000 steps. Okay, so we've done some studies in the physical activity monitoring group, saying that over the last year, lockdown has decreased our normal 10,000 steps to 6,000. Okay, so only 100 students were used. Okay, but basically people went from doing 10,000 steps a day or more to less than 6,000 over lockdown. So you can see how lockdown has affected our physical activity. People are not doing more activity, they're doing less. They're still going out for their walk or their run. They might walk twice a day, but in actual fact, normal life was busier and had you running about. Okay. Who's been less active during lockdown? I've been less active during lockdown, and that's unusual for me. Type yes or no in the chat. Yeah. Okay. I'll imagine most of us have been less active during lockdown, because obviously, you know, we've been advised to stay at home. Okay, Rebecca's been more active. Okay, so here we are, metabolic equivalent of task. Sleeping is roughly 1 MET. Okay, and then if you're studying at your desk, can be about 2 METs. Okay, going for a walk up to 3 METs. Going to the gym and doing some cardiovascular exercise can be anything up to 6 METs. And then we get into the vigorous activity where we start doing some sort of circuit training, jogging, okay, or if you're skipping, up to 10 METs if we're skipping. So skipping's a high metabolic activity. Can't do it for long though. And then it comes on to one of my favorites, which is HIIT training, that stands for high intensity interval training. So this is the type of training that gives you the most bang for your buck. Okay, so we know that short bouts of vigorous activity are better for you than long bouts of moderate activity. I will say that again. Short bouts of vigorous activity are better for you than long bouts of moderate activity. Yeah, so it's good for us to be working maximally, okay, and pushing hard, okay, rather than just doing steady state the whole time. Okay, and you know, back in the day when I was a personal trainer, I knew this, so we always try and train our clients with high intensity training because they get more results. Okay, and that's what they want to see. So a form of this is something called Tabata, from Professor Tabata's work in Japan, and he did a protocol for cycling, which is basically 20 seconds of work followed by a 10-second rest, 20 seconds work, and you repeat that kind of on-off, and you do that for 4 minutes. So 4 minutes of intense work, okay, can get you the equivalent of an hour of steady state. 4 minutes can give you the equivalent of an hour. Okay, so that's pretty impressive. So we're going to do some Tabata training tomorrow, but we're going to do it in a very limited form because we don't want to get you guys too out of breath, wearing your masks and breathing too hard. So we're going to do a restricted version of that and tomorrow. So you're not going to have the full Tabata experience. You can do that in the privacy of your own home. So if we look at what we've done, we've described how the heart is this dual pump that circulates blood and oxygenates blood to the working muscles. We've covered the normal metrics of the heart, blood pressure, cardiac output. We know our safe training zones and maximal heart rates, and we've also know how to measure heart rate with rate of perceived exertion and the Borg scale, and then understand that we want to get our patients ideally to do vigorous activity. I don't know about you, but I feel the need for some Kahoot. Okay, give me a thumbs up in the chat if you would like some Kahoot. Who wants a bit of Kahoot? Anyone? Yeah. Okay, so the Kahoot number that we want is 179978. 179978. Let me just type that in the chat for you. Oh, you've done it, yeah. 179978. Thank you, guys. 179. Okay, perfect. Okay, lots of you joining. Amazing. 179978. Loads of you in. Who's Darth Maul? Can you use your real name, please? rather than your favorite Star Wars character. Okay, let's see if we can get more of you in the room. So I've got 58 in Kahoot, and I've got 75 of you on the call. There is a difference. Okay, I want to see more people in the room, please. More people in the room. I want at least another 2 in the room. Come on. 179,978. Oh, you're dropping like flies. What's going on? Okay, I need 60 in the room for a start. Need another 4 of you. Need at least another 4. Oh, we're dropping like flies. What's going on? We're back up. 57. We need another 3. Come on, join in. Need another 2. Need another 1. One more person to join. Fantastic. Thanks very much. Okay. Are we ready? Here we go. Get ready. Okay, which one of the following is the correct answer for describing the exercise paradox? Oh, I caught some of you out with that first one, didn't I? Provokes acutely, prevents chronically. Okay, Becky P's on top, then Grace, then Darth Maul, then Lauren J, then Kate. Next question. Which of the following best represents average blood pressure? Average blood pressure. Which one is it? 120/80. Most of you getting that right. Well done, guys. Most of you listening. Who's on top? Becky's still on top. Darth Maul moves up to second place. Then Kate, then Lauren J, then Kieran joins us on the leaderboard. All to play for. Which of the following best represents average heart rate? Average heart rate. Which one is it? Yeah. 72 beats per minute is the average heart rate. Well done, guys. Becky and Darth Maul fighting it out for first and second place. Then Lauren J, then Kate, then Kieran. Okay. Question 4. Which of the following best represents average respiratory rate at rest? Average respiratory rate at rest. Yeah, 8 to 16 breaths per minute. Caught you out there. Okay, if the average is 12 to 24, that's miles too high, guys. Okay, miles too high. Caught you out there. You just saw 12, didn't you? Oh, Darth Maul goes on top. Then Becky, then Josh, then Elliot, then Carl. Well done, Darth Maul. Which of the following best represents a description of metabolic equivalent of task? Keep going, guys. Yes, the physiological measure that expresses energy cost of activities. Darth Maul, you're killing it. Then Josh, then Becky P, then Elliot, then Jack. Last question, all to play for. The Borg scale for rate of perceived exertion is measured on what numeric scale? Last one, guys. It's 6 to 20. Well done. Okay, so who is in third position? Third position is Megan Francis. Well done. Second is Carl. Well, our winner is Darth Maul, whoever you are. Darth Maul is our winner. Runners up, Lauren J and Soph. Okay, well done, guys. Excellent stuff. Absolutely brilliant. Very, very well played. Okay, so that is the end of today. Now we've got some I'm just going to stop the video there, guys. That's all we need.